Greetings and welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Poly Weekly News. I'm being very honest with you. I am somewhere on a boat around Europe right now. So I'm not bringing you a live Poly Weekly News, but at a recent trade show that I was at, I ran into Chris Neto here. Chris, say hi to everybody.
How you doing, everybody?
So we're going to have a conversation with Chris. Chris, if you don't know him, is probably the leading influencer in the AV community. Let's get into some of how that happened and what you're doing and how it happened. So first of all, for anybody who doesn't know you, how do you describe yourself? Who are you and what do you do?
Well, my name's Chris Neto. I am a audiovisual professional. I've been doing this now since 1998. I am a college grad with a degree in broadcast technology, but for some weird reason I ended up installing video conferencing equipment back in 1998, and it's led me down a path where I've gotten fully immersed in the audiovisual space in the industry, and I've held just about every type of weird possible role I could possibly hold, and worked for various companies. I've been an end user. I've been a consultant.
So you were in the pharma space for a long time, right?
As an end user and a consultant. So I worked for a consulting firm, AV Help Desk at the time, now they're AVH. They basically hired me as an on-site designer for the facility. I was doing a lot of site work. So I was meeting internally with I worked for the IT department. That's an argument in itself, right?
You could do a whole show on that one.
Yeah. So I worked for the IT department, but I represented their interests when it came time for restacking new corporate areas or new floors that were getting remodeled. So we were constantly working with standardizing the rooms and trying to make the rooms not as custom for every space, because everybody had a different need, and what we tried to do is basically catalog, and that's what we did, catalog a lot of different conference rooms for the different needs. And basically we said, hey, here's 5 flavors that you could have for this type of space. And yes, there was always a custom option. The custom option was always there, and we always knew that there was something that needed a little extra differentiator, I guess. And but we worked with our standards and the books that we basically had put together and said, hey, you know what, here's a small, medium, large. Here is a boardroom. A huddle room was new at the time.
They didn't call it that then.
Yeah, they called it a huddle room because they couldn't figure out what to do. So it was just like a temporary placeholder.
So it was, you and I pretty much cut our teeth. You were in pharma, I was in financial services. Mm-hmm. We both sort of left that 9-to-5 thing, but you've had the experience of running cables on the ground, of finding things that were unplugged that had to be plugged back in. People thought they could get the internet off of a remote control on a video conferencing device. You've been in the room, as I have, while a device is rebooting, which is not fun when you have 30 people sitting in a room looking at you, hoping it. So you have that experience, and then you move on to be a consultant. And you and I, again, both did that roughly at the same time, where now there's this level of expertise that you're giving to a lot of clients. But the interesting transition for you, and what I really want to talk about a little bit today, and again, we've done it differently, and you've done it differently in different circles than I have, but you sort of become a leader in the industry when I used to call it, if you get out in front of the freight train and run fast enough, people will think you're leading it. And you realized earlier than anybody else the role of marketing and social media and gathering people together that only now is coming to fruition about how people understand the value of that.
Well, I don't think it was a set design that I went out after. Literally, I entered into social media out of desperation. My job with the pharma company was coming to an end. They were laying off about 25,000 worldwide, right? And AV was part of the low man on the totem pole, right? Lowest rung. So in losing knowing that my job was going to end, I turned to LinkedIn and started working on my network, building it out, adding all the certifications. One of the things that I did, I loved my time as an end user. It gave me such a different point of view to how AV is done, how video conferencing is done, the world of unified communications, how IT thinks, because I was the inside guy in there, and it really shined a light on what I did wrong prior to and what people were doing wrong to me as a customer, right? So
I've always said throughout my career, I always wish I was as smart as I thought I was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You learn so much, you keep learning.
It's pretty interesting how that turned around. But basically losing my job, or knowing that my job was coming to an end, it was, we were all waiting, because it dribs and drabs, and the echoes, the whispers start happening. So I used social media to find a job, and when I posted it up on LinkedIn, because that was my first social site, I said, "Hey, listen, I lost my job, and it was on a Friday, but I started a new job on a Monday. Don't worry." And I had reached out to an editor of a magazine, and it was over something. I may have been arguing with the editor over a miscalculation on some screen sizes, or they called it a 60 volt or speaker as opposed to a 7. There was a typo in there. And I guess we were connected, and when I posted that I lost my job but I found the new one, they thought it was very interesting that an AV person, right, lowly AV person, can go in this downtrodden market. At the time, it was in 08, 09, roughly, when the housing market was in the toilet. So how did you do it? And I basically said I use social. There's a lot of people that could probably benefit from how you did that. I'm like, all right, I'll write a story about how I networked using LinkedIn. So it became very popular. Came back, and the editor asked if I had anything else, and I was an art major in college originally, not a broadcast major, but I found creativity in broadcast, so I quit art and went to broadcast. I wanted to make money before I was dead, right? That was the whole point, right? At least that's what they told me about being a starving artist.
Yeah, the one who has more toys at the end wins.
Yeah. So basically, I wrote an article about having a portfolio and using a portfolio. Basically, what I did was I would gather all my emails, good guy emails, letters of recommendation that I would ask for, pictures of projects that I did, obviously censoring out some of the details, companies' names that didn't want to be seen, pictures of my work, all the certificates, because one of the things I did very well in being an end user was I spent a lot of time sitting outside conference rooms, and that time was well spent because I basically dove into the books. So I got certified in every possible way, and it started a path for me to getting my CTS and to renewing my CTS very easily, because I would just study. Since I was working, I might as well learn more about the speaker system or the microphones that I was using. Take audio, manufacturer certs, Infocom classes at the time, whatever it took, right? I did what I needed to get done. And that's my story of how I basically started into the socials, that I got discovered. And then a friend of mine said, hey, if you're writing, now you're a published author, get on Twitter, because people will share your article and want to talk to the author and ask you questions. So, I was new to it, so I'd start up a Twitter account. It took me a while before I really started using Twitter the right way.
What is your Twitter handle now?
Chris_Neto.
How many followers do you have?
12,500.
Now that's not an easy thing to do for somebody who's not, in media or a celebrity or something. You're a celebrity in our industry.
I guess. I mean, follower count. It's the beauty of that is in the eye of the beholder, right? I'd like to say,
especially now, Twitter is. But yeah.
To have 12,000, focused AV people is it's an honor. A lot of companies, a lot of individuals within those companies follow me, and it's been something that I've been very consistent with. A lot of people have asked how you do it. I'm like, it's every day. It's a commitment. I have a very patient wife.
Social media is a hungry child. You have to keep feeding it, otherwise it dies.
Absolutely. That's, to me, probably why I never really did well with Snapchat or the TikToks, is that it requires extra stuff. I can write. 140 characters at first was easy. 280 was a little bit of a stretch, and that was 280 characters on Twitter is what they're now doing, and more. I like short form. It's vlogging, it's blogging, it's diary writing in the modern day, right? And many times early on when I was doing it, I felt like I was talking to the abyss. So you would write a tweet, and I'm like, I don't know if anybody's watching.
Throw it out there and see what comes about.
Essentially. The irony of it is that my first year, I just did a lot of, hey, this is a cool article, I'll share it. Here's a cool article, I share it. And I knew there was a Twitter community for AV, and the AV Tubes community was formed a bunch of years before I even started. somebody said, hey, start tweeting into hashtag AV Tweeps. That's where the AV people are. And eventually I go to discover that, yeah, there are AV people there. And I found some other hashtags too I got to become a student of Twitter. And if you learn one social media platform, you feel like you can almost operate in all of them.
So let's pause there just for a second.
Sure.
I do want you to get back to that story, but it highlights one of the most important points that I tell customers, end users, industry people, and that I think you really understand as well. You don't network when you've lost your job or when you're losing your job and you want to talk to people and figure out what's going on. You network all the time.
Correct.
There's nothing better than talking with, meeting with peers, building your network. If you know a friend who's lost their job, be the first person to reach out to them and say, hey, what can I do to help?
Yeah.
I don't have any jobs for you, but these 3 people might be hiring. Here's their name, mention my name. Everything, it's an expression called Indian wisdom. I guess it's a dated expression. The smile that you send out returns to you. If you're a good member of the community grows, your network grows, and it serves you really well for an entire career. And you learned that through the expertise you're going to continue to tell us about, but it's really about the people and the network.
It's always been about that. Try not to burn bridges, and I've headbutted with some folks. My first job in true AV as a project manager, I was working for a company out of Jersey that I had a senior technician who was a former road dog, right? Spent many years touring. He has the scars and the tattoos to prove it. And my job as a project manager was to just get the project done. And he had his way, and he couldn't understand how me, 4 years out of college at the time, possibly, or 3 years out of college, how I was a project manager telling him what to do. And I said, sir, I don't mean no disrespect, but we got to get this project done, and I don't care about your ego at this point. I said, I'm sure you're very smart, and I'm sure you're going to help me get this project done. But we clashed, and I try not to burn those bridges. Even so, I came back later, and I said, listen, no harm, no foul. I said, we both went at it. We kind of didn't understand where we were coming from. But I understand your strength, and I'm absolutely going to play to your strengths. But you have to respect the fact that I have strengths as well.
There's a leader. You got to follow the leader.
Yeah, and there's protocol, right? So,
and it also highlights the fact that you're dealing with people with different personalities,
and different
oftentimes
backgrounds.
Different cultures.
Yes.
Like an AV project in the U.S., if you go into the project meeting and you sit down and you talk about the plans, everybody will tell you what they like and what they hate. And if you go into a project meeting in the UK, everybody will nod for the entire meeting, and then later on when you're going to get a drink, they'll tell you why everything was terrible. You have to respect how the culture works.
Yes.
and work within other people's norms.
And there's a third culture, which me and you understand very well, which is the New York City culture. Your first meeting in a trailer at a project with local electricians, that's a whole other experience. And if you, as viewers, if you want to really cut your teeth in this industry, spend 6 months on a project in New York City dealing with those timelines and people that have absolutely no clue what it is you're bringing to the table other than you're the TV guy.
Well, in all honesty, I worked to build the Financial News Network TV studios in Rockefeller Center, which building anything in Rockefeller Center, full union building, very difficult. I was warned about Local 3, the local electricians. They were going to get in the way, they weren't going to let you do anything. Turned out to be the nicest group of people that I've ever worked with. If you respect people and you communicate, you know what? It turns out really well.
It is. They came across a certain way to me as a rookie, I guess, walking into that first trailer meeting. But I understood how they operated after a little bit, and there is ways to get projects done. You just have to adapt, and that's part of this whole conversation is adaptability. And I think that people that have networked in the past, you may have a nice black book of business, and I hate that term. Because that sounds like I'm coming to your company, this is my black book of business, which means that little book these are guaranteed customers. There's no guarantee, but I tell you what, I do have friends, and my friends that are out there may or may not have that opportunity, but they know what I do and know that I answer my phone call on a Saturday at 2 in the afternoon that black book means nothing unless you're able to bend and adapt to the way the new world works. Unfortunately, I'm not even talking post-pandemic. I'm just talking I was operating, 24/7 prior to, and that's not right, and it's not fair because of the work-life balance conversation. But I will make time for people, especially people that are asking questions, and it's amazing what comes back to you.
I'm a big believer in work-life blend, not work-life balance, in that I have no problem answering my phone on a Saturday or a Sunday, or answering an email or a text. I'm not going to say I'm not working. These are my personal hours. How do I know what my colleague's looking for? It might be a crisis unless I look at what it is. I don't care if I'm on vacation or whatever, but what I get in return is I go with my kids to the movies, or I go shopping, or I do personal errands. The whole idea is it sort of integrates.
Yeah.
And, all right, so let's bring the story up to the present. Right now, you're moderating and owning a community called AV in the AM. You have to tell everybody about that a little bit. And you're also, a business development manager for a very large distributor, and you've got your fingers involved in a lot of projects. So tell us about those two things.
Okay. So AV in the AM started roughly 5 years ago.
I was there.
You were there. It was a picture of a coffee cup and a question about Alexa being used in a corporate space. And it was about 10 people. We went back and forth most of the day. It was just a thread or two. I had one question. Somebody had a question I answered, and people just kept going back. I have a decent following, right? And this is Sunday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. Didn't expect people up. I thought I was just answering a question. Next week, I take a picture of the coffee cup, say good morning, and immediately somebody answered, what are we going to talk about this week? And I figured, let me have a question ready just in case. I'm like, hey, I was on the road this week and I saw this. And it turned into another discussion. Another, 10, 20 people eventually start coming on.
It's the quiet time that a lot of us technical people, our families are still asleep, we're up in the morning, we're checking our email, we're all sitting at a computer online, and all of a sudden we found we were all there.
That's exactly what happened. 8 o'clock in the morning on Sundays, I found people getting up early to make breakfast, other people getting ready to, at 8 o'clock in the morning, they had possibly soccer coaching later that day. Others were getting ready for church. Some were just can't sleep, right? I've reached an age where I'm 6 o'clock in the morning. If I'm not up by 6, my day's gone. Like, what am I doing?
Down with the night, up with the sun. That's welcome to this age.
So I'm up early and found that there's a group there. And eventually I also noticed that there was a lot of people from England that were joining because it's lunchtime, right after lunchtime. So the conversation in the morning was like watching the sunrise across the world. As it got lighter, people started connecting, and I could tell that the West Coasters were coming on around 11 o'clock. And ultimately, the sun set on AV in the AM when people in New Zealand were answering on Monday morning.
And we have a few threads that have happened over the years where on Tuesday or Wednesday, you're still getting somebody chiming in because they feel so passionately about the question or the answer. Yeah,
there's people that catch I catch some slack because they're like, what do you mean there's no AV in the AM this weekend? Time and time again, and you know it because I'll say, like, hey man, I have a commitment, I can't be here Sunday. So we basically say, hey, there's, we're putting it on hold. We're having an off day, and it doesn't happen a lot. Some holidays, crazy though. Some of the longest or most absurd chats happened on holidays where I thought nobody was there, and I just realized, like, oh wow, I'm not doing anything for Father's Day. Guys, here's 5 questions about whatever, and they turn into like all these dads are home. And the family just wasn't budging, or they weren't going out until later. So they spent the morning chatting and then went off to do a brunch or lunch later.
So if you haven't seen this, Chris is the leader. I participate as well. It's on Twitter. You just have to look for the hashtag AV in the AM.
Yep.
And participate 8 o'clock in the morning on Sundays.
And it's not 8 o'clock in the morning. You got to be there. You miss it. You'll see.
It goes on all day. 8 o'clock Eastern time.
It starts at 8 o'clock Eastern time because that's when I get up and I have everything kind of fired up by then. But there's people jumping in all day. It's open. After the questions are posted as individual tweets, I then capture all the. I screen cap all the tweet the questions, put them into a collage, and I post them. So the questions are always there attached to my my profile for the day. You'll see the 5 questions. Why 5? Why not? I've been asked that. I just picked 5. 4 was off.
With debates about a bonus question and all the rest of it going on.
Yes.
So let's wrap this up, because I don't want to
Sure.
kill too much of your time here at the show or anybody who's watching. What are you doing for a living now? What's your job?
My title is I am the market development manager for a company called Starin. Starin is a Indiana-based distributor. We distribute a lot of UC products. That's our specialty. We were early into the Zoom conversation and worked real close with Zoom to build out their ecosystem. But as we grew, we also now do a lot of Microsoft Teams spaces and stuff like that. So if it connects to one of the UC platforms, camera, microphone, control, whatever that case is, we typically will carry it. And our brands have, we're constantly expanding and changing things up there. But it's been a good ride. I've been there 4 years. We got bought right before ISE Pandemic Edition, first one. The last one in Amsterdam, we got purchased or acquired by Midwich, which is a bigger company. We merged. We're part of the Midwich family. Yep. So, which is great because it opens up a bigger global conversation. It's been fun working with them. I've got to travel to ISE and work the Midwich booth this past year. I've been to the UK for various other things, such as working with AV Magazine at the AV Awards, being the broadcast voice for that, along with Tim Albright. It's been wild, and all this has been made possible thanks to Twitter and to that rise.
Well, it also is the person. It's not just Twitter.
People. If you you'll meet me in person. I'm not one that's hard to come by. I may seem very loud, but in a public environment, I'm usually in the back corner. I'm more of a people observer than if I have to get called to the stage, I get called to the stage, and I put on my persona for that. But generally, what you see online is what you see in person. I'm accessible. I'm humble. And I'm saying that I'm humble in that.
Yeah,
I know
a bit of a chuckle line, but that's
it is a chuckle line, but I know where I came from, and I don't forget where I came from. And
so, if somebody wants to reach out to you to work with you, how should they get in touch with you?
The best way is going to be obviously LinkedIn. If you connect with me, Christopher Neto CTS on LinkedIn, Chris_Neto on Twitter are the two main places. But you know what? If you find me at a trade show, you'll find me at an Infocom. Don't hesitate to just tap me on the shoulder, say hi. I'm approachable. That's one of the things that I like to say that I am, as opposed to some people that I've thought were bigger celebrities in the world of AV and happen to be the most impersonable people I've met. So
it's a community where people help each other, and I will be at Infocom, you will be at Infocom. I think we're both going to be at the new Commercial Integrator Expo. We're both going to probably be at the new show UCX USA that's going on in Austin.
Yep.
If you need to chat with us, make it give us a call, send an email. You guys know how to reach me. I'm one of the single most reachable people on the planet. Chat with us, come see here, come network, come be part of it, because it's really nice. And that invitation, as you know, has been taken up by a whole bunch of new people that never really had the courage to do it before, and I love that they're part of the community. It's really sending the elevator back down.
Giving a platform to people who have voices that didn't know how to use their voice. They've had their voice. I didn't have to teach them how to do it. I just had to give them a platform to do it. And this ranges from everybody from a diversity and equity conversation to, I don't put myself out there as a champion of anything. I just like to quietly help people get to where they need to be and where they want to be. And that's not hard. It's, you just give them the opportunity. And it's, for me, it's kind of a life of paying it forward.
Well, you know very well that I'm much more in the background than some of our peers, but I've also helped quite a few people because I think it's my responsibility. Yeah. I've been doing this for, 1978. How many years is that now? 44, 43?
That's a
4
lot.
decades of trying to figure out
I
what I want
wasn't
to be
even
when
in
I grow
school,
up.
man. Come on, David.
I had my first internship at AT&T Corporate Television, 195 Broadway in 1978. And I've been doing it ever since. And people I worked with then, I'm still in touch with now.
So just now I'm going to have to put the question on you, because
Okay.
that's what I do for a living. I ask questions. No, actually what I do for a living is a market development manager, but I ask questions on Sunday.
Right.
You went to college for TV and broadcast.
Yeah,
Yeah. You had an internship.
correct.
I went to college for TV broadcast. I had an internship. I interned with the New York Giants video department. What, to you, there's a lot of back and forth about what people need in this industry and how to get into the industry. What value did a college, not just the college degree, but the college internship bring to your... Because there's going to be people here that are watching going, you know what, maybe we should start an internship program. What was the value? For me, it was real life experience, which I didn't get in school. Everything was textbook, and I was splicing and cutting and editing and doing all that until I got to a real experience, right? Here it is. Here's a star, right? What do? You're not starstruck. How do you work through that? How do you open the door, and follow protocol because the general manager of the team is walking and, you're just going to be nice. Like, it's not starstruck, right?
Well, if I were to talk about my background, it would take a whole nother show, so I'm not going to get into too much detail. But I had a great experience at the time. There was an experimental program in New York City called EHSIP, the Executive High School Internship Program. So as a senior at high school, I took a college-style internship. I was competing with other college interns. Worked, like as I said, for AT&T Broadcasting, their corporate television. They owned the long line, so they didn't have a problem doing video things. And I learned from the technicians there things I would never learn in school. I learned, how to get my hands on equipment. I learned how to work in a corporate environment.
Under pressure.
Look, I was a high school kid. This is the first time, I'm on my own for lunch, going out somewhere, hanging out with crowds, learning. And you make relationships and friendships and you learn things. Honestly, you have to work hard. Some of the most important lessons that I learned in this industry is if you're sitting down on a chair because there's nothing to do, it's okay, you're still working. Yeah. You're not being hired to move crates. You're being hired to know what to do when you need to do it. One of a dozen lessons I learned. And I think the value there is not just hands-on, but is understanding your network, is understanding how to talk with people and how to build that network. So I highly recommend creating internships and treating interns like they're not slave labor. They're there to learn, and you teach them. One of the interns that was working for Poly at the time was on my show. Rachel Kubia was on the Poly Weekly News a couple of weeks ago from Enterprise Connect. She's now an analyst relations person working with us. We needed to mentor her. She's become a terrific employee, and that's when it's a win-win situation. So
a lot of people forget that in the internship programs, I was paying for my credits. I was paying to be there. I wasn't getting paid. And at the time, that's the way it worked. I got 6 credits out of it. It was a great experience, and I learned so much. And I still connect with my mentor.
They're your first references for your resume, so that's really important. So anyway, Chris, thank you for what you do for the industry. Thank you for spending the time. Everybody, thank you very much for watching Poly Weekly News. We will be back next week. We really do appreciate you spending time, even when we're just chatting here. And we'll have more Poly News next week. So take care. For everybody at HP and Poly, we appreciate it. We'll see you next week.
Take care.